Welcome, squad, for my first look at a film that's possibly inducted into the Cinema Hall of Shame. It's time to tackle one that many consider to be among the worst of all time. Leonard, Part 6. Let's dive into the background of Leonard Part 6. This was supposed to be the big holiday moneymaker for Columbia TriStar Pictures on the heels of the latter studio's The Running Man. The studio surrounded this film with Oscar contenders The Last Emperor and Ironweed. They were hopeful that surely this wouldn't become another Ishtar, which blew up in Columbia's face that summer. They came into this situation with money in their eyes. In 1987, The Cosby Show averaged 43.7 million viewers. Not quite at its peak, but still quite good. If every viewer bought a ticket to see Leonard Part 6 using $3.91 ticket price for 1987, that would equal $171.1 million. If only half the viewers went to see the movie, we're still talking $85.6 million. At a cost of $24 million, that would equal big profits. However, there were some stories of turmoil on set. John DeBont, who happened to be the director of photography, he could sense some problems from the beginning. Bill Cosby was so powerful and had so much control that he took charge of the tone and comedy from director Paul Weiland. Apparently, he saw the film one way and everyone else saw it a different way, which turned the shoot into an awful and depressing experience. Apparently Paul Weiland more or less agreed with DeMont. He felt like the movie was going slow and was told by the star that he should just worry about the construction of the film. I will worry about the funny. I will worry about the comedy. Also, he pointed out that the star had a bunch of yes men and wouldn't hear the truth. Bill Cosby, for what it's worth, wasn't a big fan of the shoot either. He talked about it in 1990, I think maybe during the press run for Ghost Dad. He claimed that he was essentially an actor for hire who got hung out by the studio and was victimized by the US versus Britain conflict that happened while filming. You don't know how to make movies, the British do, opined the film's star, producer, and story creator. And considering he did all this does kind of feel a little bit suspect. But still, it looked like it was going to be a big money maker. As long as he would do the standard press and publicity for the film, Leonard Part 6 might be a critical flop, but it wouldn't necessarily be a financial one. Until, of course, Bill Cosby openly came out against the film. Starting with Larry King, he told various talk show crowds not to see the film. And it worked. The film only made $4.6 million globally. Taking a look at this in modern terms, this would actually compare to John Carter's flop in 2012. The film actually opened in 10th place with $1.32 million, and it made a total of $4.6 million globally. Now, dividing that by the average ticket price, we're talking a little less than 1.2 million people who saw this in theaters. And that's only 2.7% of the average Cosby Show audience. Coca-Cola lost $19.4 million in 1987 on the film. As it turned out, it would be so bad a loss that Coca-Cola would sell Columbia to Sony the next year. And let's take a look at things in modern movie math. Using 2023 ticket prices of $10.53, we're talking $2.69 million to kind of show what it would be like in modern terms. The cost is $64.6 million, which is not great, but not the worst. But the opening, we're always still talking about $3.5 million, and the gross would be $12.4 million. So, just looking at strict loss, we're talking $52.2 million in 2023 dollars. But, in modern days, We can't just presume that the cost is only the making of the film. We also got to talk about, like, for example, advertising, and studios only get so much of the gross. So apparently, in order to be an actual profit, they need to have twice the budget minimum. So the 2023 actual loss would probably be closer to 116.8 million, which would squeeze in somewhere between the 2021 remake of The Suicide Squad and John Carter from 2012. Pretty rotten company. And of course, as part of the whole thing, Bill would collect those 3 Razzies he ended up winning and showed them off with pride. He swept the awards, he said. He swept the awards. Now it's time for the cast and plot. Leonard Part 6 is a feature debut of Paul Weiland, probably best known at that time for making a potato chip commercial in Britain. The film stars Bill Cosby as Leonard Parker, former CIA agent turned restaurant owner. Pat Colbert plays his estranged or ex-wife Allison. Not entirely sure which is which. I mean, we'll get into it when we get to the plot. Victoria Roll is his daughter Joan. Veteran actor Joe Don Baker plays CIA head Nick Snyderburn, who recruits Leonard to stop a scheme by Medusa Johnson, played by Gloria Foster, who would turn animals against humans. Tom Courtney is Leonard's butler Frayne, and Moses Gunn plays Joan's current boyfriend and play director Giorgio Francosi. Now let's take a look and see what actually happens in the film. I want to point out that we are in for a wild ride, as the opening credits appear to have been done in chalk, with some animals they spent way more time on than the names on the screen. At least it plays in the plot, but do we still need to hear a fish burping a minute in? I also want to point out the score at the beginning sounds way more appropriate to a horror film than it does a comedy starring America's dad trying to become America's comeback kid in the theaters. And wait a minute, is that John DeBond as the director of photography? Thanks for the reminder. I guess I'm going to have to add Speed 2 cruise control to the list of possible inductions in the future. The writer, by the way, is Jonathan Reynolds, who apparently did Mickey and Maude back in 1984. I thought it was fine. Anyway, the film opens with some shots, a few flashes of things yet to come. Bill driving a tank car as it flies over the road. Bill doing Bolshoi in the ballet. I presume that's somebody else in the distance shots who knows what the heck they're doing. And Bill riding an ostrich off the rooftop through a letter O and escaping an explosion as it flies. An ostrich flying? Oh, come on! Now we turn to the butler, who most definitely did not do it, who explains that everything happened in 1 week in San Francisco. And in case you're wondering, Leonard is a heck of a boss with exceptional talents. Maybe nobody's going to confuse him with Liam Neeson in Taken, but whatever. Anyway, and in case you're wondering, the first 5 adventures were taken from us due to world security. Although I suspect if this had landed, maybe we could have ended up getting them in theaters. Anyway, some divers underneath the Golden Gate Bridge are swimming for some reason, while a spy is relaxing by the pool as his girlfriend takes a dip. He opens a picture of Medusa just as the divers presumably open a picture of a spy. Underwater, of course. They take out a dogfish, it barks, and have it sniff the photo. Wait, what? How can you smell anything underwater? And with the word quellish, the plot started. The dogfish goes to the dirty pipe, pausing in a Playboy magazine. Don't worry, it's just tempted by the cover photo. Eventually he gets his target, and the butler mentions he was the first agent eaten by a rainbow trout. Huh? I mean, after all, rainbow trout don't bark. Over in CIA headquarters, Snyderbird is upset that that's the 8th agent who got killed this month. He decides to recruit a former spy with the ruthlessness and wit of the ones responsible for their deaths. And on that, I presume this is Leonard Parker that he's referring to. The guy tasked with bringing him in comes to Leonard's restaurant where he's serving vanilla pudding with strawberries. Please don't tell me that's actually from Jello. Anyway, the butler refers to him as being bored and rich. That's our hero, everybody. Anyway, he takes Monroe to the tank where the fish is kept as various people in the kitchen go about their business. And things take a turn when he pulls out his gun and tries to kill him, recruiting him by killing him. No way. That wouldn't work, would it? Would it? Monroe's stormtrooper type shooting manages to make the lives of the chefs easier. Shooting flames leads to crepes flambe. Shooting a pot leads to a spaghetti strainer. I hope no gunpowder residue makes it to one of his customers. Shooting a bag of beans leads to the coffee container being filled up, eggs turned sunny side up on a grill, and a plate of spices lands perfectly in the spaghetti sauce. Olive oil lands perfectly on some skillets as chefs start to cook spontaneously. And by the end, as all this is taking place, the entire staff seems unbothered by all the gunfire. Nobody is panicking or getting the hell out of there. I guess this isn't the first time it's happened here. Anyway, Monroe takes another shot and the fridge door is opened. Full of Coca-Cola prominently displayed. Did I mention Coca-Cola owned Columbia Pictures at the time? Multiple ricochets later and Monroe is killed, falling in the tank. Here's an actual shot of the fridge. Make note, they're facing the product because that's apparently more important than anything else. Anyway, Leonard drags Monroe into CIA headquarters where he gets a warm greeting from Snyderburn. Apparently he was supposed to survive or else he wouldn't have been the right man for the job. While people keep tripping over Monroe's corpse, the mission explained by Jefferson. Hey, Grace Zabriskie, I should mention you're in this one too, eh? After agents spend 20 seconds or so turning off their desk lights simultaneously. Yes, we needed 2 attempts at this one. Why? Anyway, through a series of slides, we get a recap of all the agents have been passed on due to hangry house cats, squirrels, gophers. The villain headquarters is known as International Tuna, and the person responsible is Medusa, a vegetarian and ecologist with design for world domination. I should remind you that the 1980s were a time for meat-loving Americans, and vegans were evil with designs on world domination. You don't believe me? Ask the notable expert on veganism, Tro 2. And at that point, the tripping over the corpse count is up to 3, as others explained, and Amos will take San Francisco in the next 2 to 3 days unless he comes back and stops her team. Leonard turns him down, including his usual payday of $6 million. Why? He wants to get his wife back, who hasn't returned his calls for 7 years. All together now. Let it go, let it go. And now that trip count is up to 4. It's borderline desecrating a corpse at this point. He tries to convince Leonard to join them so he can win back his wife. Nah, and that trip count is up to 5 now. Monroe constantly underfoot to everybody at this point. Back at the mansion, Leonard is greeted by his butler, who explained the president just dropped a call to him, and of course, Leonard would do anything to get his wife back. After greeting, he learns his wife still hasn't called him, shocker, but his daughter is here. Talking about expressing herself and how this play will make her a star. Did someone throw in a Lisa Bonet reference here? It feels like the cause is less than enthused, and it turns out she's into the director who is old enough to be his father. Awkward? Anyway, the two men excuse themselves for a heart-to-heart chat. He announces his plans to marry Joan despite a 45-year age gap. Robbing the cradle or the grave? Could it be both? Anyway, it becomes a Coke commercial with Bill constantly facing the bottle so it can easily read by the viewer. A crummy commercial? He's also holding a giant hoagie because, well, of course he is. Because people wouldn't recognize him as Heathcliff Huxtable otherwise. I wonder if it was in his contract. Anyway, he chats with Joan and reveals that she wanted to be a sculptor and a Buddhist in previous months. Yeah, he's not looking forward to paying for a wedding and a funeral a month later. Oh, and he'd have less of a problem with her dating someone his age. Huh? Anyway, here's a shot of the Coke. Here's a shot of that. And make note here, you can see the gigantic Coke bottle. So, let me show you just how surreal that scene is with a reenactment. I have a big issue with you dating my daughter Joan, especially since you're old enough to be my father. What am I doing? I gotta make sure that Coca-Cola, it can easily be seen by viewers. I'm a salesman for him as well. Robbing the cradle or the grave? Could it be both? Anyway, where's my hoagie? My wife don't like me eating that sort of thing, but she done me 7 years ago and I'm still trying to win her back. No, she hasn't returned my calls. Why do you ask? You know, I should worry. I do worry and care for my daughter, not as much as I care for Coca-Cola, the owners of the studio that is making this movie. You want a close-up? Here you go. All right. Meanwhile, surveying international tuna is a dangerous occupation for CIA agents, and a sloppy spy is going to be riveted out of existence because he was sloppy, spying in on Medusa and company as soon as someone says quellish. It appears, by the way, that there is not nearly enough wardrobe for most of her minions who are stuck with white tank tops. After all, we are talking the same cost as the last emperor. I should bring that up. Anyway, you know what time this means, right? Jump, jump, a daddy make ya. Jump, jump, back daddy'll make ya. Jump, jump, uh-huh. And she laughs maniacally as we're now up to 9 agents lost. 9. Anyway, while she's cackling, Leonard is moping about the missus. It turns out the 7 years was due to him and a 19-year-old woman naked in a hot tub hitting each other with birch leaves. You know, I like to hit somebody in the head with a birch leaf right about now. Maybe a good solid branch. But he decides to call her 2 a.m. in the morning over the situation with Joan and Giorgio, and she agrees to dinner at 9 p.m. that night. He's so excited that he kisses the butler, who appears excited. You know, I have questions. If I didn't have them before, now I have them. Anyway, you guessed it. It's time for a montage to a People Bryson song. We get a sequence where Leonard gets himself a new suit, complete with tie, and works himself out with Adidas gear. Apparently that includes a mani-pedi with cucumber face mask. I'm not sure why he needs to bare his torso. He apparently was dad bod before that became a thing. And while the butler shouts out encouragement with a megaphone, Jane Fonda shows up during a videotaped workout where she trashes Leonard for not being able to get it up. But wait a minute, here's Snyderburn interrupting the video. How? With the location of the key sphere over in Sector B. Repeat. Over in Sector B. Got it. And, well, Leonard is rich enough that he can shower in bottled water. Yeah, someone we can all root for. Anyway, it's now date night, and things start off pleasant enough, but Allison decides to mess up a suit first with wine and then with soup. Despite her words, she can't forgive him. You know what? I don't blame her, to be honest with you. She punctuates things with a rice and shrimp facial. Yes, this is a thing that happened. Also, can we talk about all the eye rolls that Bo is doing? I think we're in double digits by now for this. Anyway, the butler is back, and he notices the night hasn't gone well. That's sort of the understatement of the century. But hey, Leonard wants to see an Albanian nurse who is what he sees before going in on the field. I guess we finally got our answer on whether he wants to spy or not. Apparently, she lives in a bus in an Oakland trailer park. She's somewhat between Cyndi Lauper without the hair dye and Carol Kane. Although they don't understand her, she gives him some ballet slippers and a red box. And she tells him Quellish as he leaves. Maybe that's going to be something important for later. Anyway, back home, Leonard gets armed with pocket-sized weapons and some hair clippers. You never know when you'll need a trim. Anyway, Frayne also knows some inspirational speeches, Pilgrim. Oh, and here's that car tank hybrid. We might be close to being 1/3 of the film done. Anyway, Leonard throws everything at the door. Cartoon bullets, armpit missiles, everything. The Oracle, Medusa, is laughing hysterically. Can't blame her. Those toy tank bullets are silly and have zero effect on the door. Not sure what's funnier, the suit he's wearing or those lame special effects. He tries everything, but can't get that door to open until she opens the door for him. She opens the door for him. He sneaks around the warehouse for a little bit until she greets him. And plans to introduce him to the vegetarians. Bred by Medusa and sent to Sumatra, these human-bird hybrids with sharp claws and beaks will try to dance Leonard to death. The dancers are good and take out all his weapons and beat him up. Luckily, he's close enough to those slippers, which now are glowing. Meanwhile, Medusa's hungry, wanting a mango. Mango me. She calls him clever but dumb. In the words of the great philosopher, no, just dumb. Now Medusa wants grapes, and somewhere the whitest kids you know got themselves an idea. Now wearing those slippers, Leonard is able to outdance the dancer minions. Apparently, the butler shares he was behind Baryshnikov defecting to the United States. Sure. And of course, the red box contains a queen bee, perfect to lead away the drones. The luring takes about 1 or 2 minutes of the wedding march. One minion manages to take away his boomerang knife, unaware of its powers. Unaware that it could come back to kill him. Of course it does. Of course it does. Medusa screams in the B room, shattering the glass, while he turns his spear into the CIA and comes home. And on that note, I'm going to probably pull the plug on this. I don't want to actually spoil everything in the film, but let's just say there's more to it. And yes, all the scenes we see in the beginning do happen in the film. I'm not sure what is honestly more bizarre. The henchman who eats a glowing hot dog after claiming that he's not scared of a little meat and have his head explode into sawdust, the mountain of lava soap backstage at the play. I'm going to argue that maybe they were sponsoring it. The scene where Leonard activates his sphere at CIA headquarters, causing rabbits to attack his compatriots. The melted butter part where Leonard and his estranged ex-wife, whatever, run off the lobsters, threatening them. Or the part where Medusa refers to Allison as tacky, tacky wifey. So what happened? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't a death sentence for Paul Weiland, who would end up going to do Bernard and the Genie, which got a remake just last year on Peacock, starring Melissa McCarthy, City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Goat, and Maid of Honor. Maybe not the best combination of comedies, but he only went up after Leonard. Oh, and he did direct a few episodes of Mr. Bean, which was on HBO. Writer Jonathan Reynolds ended up doing 2 other films, The Distinguished Gentleman and My Stepmother is an Alien, before moving over to the stage. As for the star, Bill Cosby started one more movie, 1990's Ghost Dad, which didn't do a heck of a lot better, but at least he did do all the proper showing for that one. Although he had smaller roles in Meteor Man, Jack and Fat Albert, he stuck mainly at TV, reviving You Bet Your Life, starring in The Cosby Mysteries, and Cosby, an American remake of One Foot in the Grave, which also co-starred Phylicia Rashad, and creating kids' animated series Little Bill for Nickelodeon. Joe Don Baker kept working steadily until 2012, appearing in 3 James Bond movies, among other things. Gloria Foster became the Oracle in the first 2 Matrix films, and was working on the 3rd one before dying in 2001. Tom Courtenay kept working steadily in films. His most recent project came in 2022. Wife Pat Colbert did a role in Dallas before taking a 2-decade break, only to come back, I think, maybe, I don't know, somewhere around 2014 or so. Victoria Rowe ended up splitting between TV and film, most notably a role in The Young and the Restless for a while, and films like The Distinguished Gentleman, Dumb and Dumber, and Barbed Wire. Moses Gunn largely worked in TV to his death in 1993. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Because, yes, we do have to bring this up because of the star. Although whispers have been spreading since the 1960s that Bill Cosby would drug women and have his way with them, but unfortunately, he was able to pay people off and basically treat it as a non-issue. But things started to blow up in 2014 when Hannibal Buress called him out publicly in one of his routines, accusing him of hypocrisy, saying, well, you know, you're telling other people to pull their pants up, maybe you should try being a decent human being, more or less. As a result, women started coming forward. What was once a bit of smoke quickly turned to a burning inferno inside a dumpster. At last count, we're talking around 60 or so. In many cases, they couldn't seek justice because of the statute of limitations had expired. But in 2018, Andrea Constad would help get a conviction of Bill Cosby on sexual assault with her testimony. Unfortunately, in 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court freed him due to some procedural BS nonsense. It's clear that his career was all but over. All right, now that we're done with the elephant, it's time to take a look at the actual film in front of us. So, was this so lacking quality entertainment value that it deserves a spot here? Well, we can start looking at Bill Cosby's expression in Leonard Part 6. Abject boredom. and numerous eye rolls that indicate contempt towards the material. Although the idea about him doing an action comedy where he'd throw out one-liners could possibly work, it appears that our star producer story creator forgot he would actually have to do the work necessary to be a convincing action star. Another thing, the pacing is slow. It takes over a half hour for things to actually take off as the film spends too much time on Leonard's domestic issues, and outside of a couple of action sequences, the rest of the film is kind of pokey as well. For a comedy, the only thing I can see is a lot of pitiful flop sweat. I can say that I didn't laugh once at this film. The closest time I came was when Gloria Foster's character insisted on being fruited. As a spoof, it feels like something less out of the Airplane Factory, and more like something Friedberg and Seltzer wrote as one obvious thing led to another. And as an action film, it's pretty dull. There's a complete lack of excitement throughout. The one thing it does have is a few scenes of, I can't believe what I'm watching. And it most definitely lacked quality as the CGI scenes are very shoddily done, such as the bullets from the tank car and the scene involving Leonard and the ostrich. It feels very obvious that they used a dancer devil for ballerina scenes. The action sequences, such as a confrontation between Leonard and the tank top minions, have zero energy. And obviously it lacks entertainment value. Not a lot to be found, not even at the ridiculousness of it all. A film this kind reminds me of is the 1998 Avengers, except that film had Sean Connery chewing scenery, moments of chemistry between the two leads, Ralph Fiennes and Uma Thurman, and some solid action moments. Leonard Part 6 had none of that. So congratulations to Leonard Part 6. You're the first inductee into the Cinema Hall of Shame. If you like the video and its content, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment as to what other films I should examine to see if it makes the Hall of Shame. We'll see you next time on Tickets Please Reviews.